Welcome to You Are Intuitive. I am Dana Mahachek, and I really appreciate you joining me as I speak with some of my favorite people about developing and using intuition in the real world. These conversations are refreshingly candid, accessible, and open, and it's my intention that you'll be able to see parts of your own intuitive journey reflected in the stories of other people. My guest today is a heart-led creative, weaver, artist, and crystal messenger. Katrina Smith is a yoga and meditation teacher, a Reiki 2 practitioner, a mother of 2, and the creatress behind Heart and Hands, a one-woman soul operation that creates divinely inspired talismans for people worldwide. Katrina's creations are all designed and handmade by her through an organic and intuitively led process that unfolds uniquely for each piece. As a conduit of high vibrational energy, Katrina receives clear and specific intuitive visions for each creation she makes. And she trusts that all of her talismans will serve as instruments that can inspire her purchasers to do, feel, or be something that reconnects them with their own divine nature. Katrina is a beautiful advocate for conscious production and consumerism, and it is my deep and absolute honor to introduce you to her today. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that you enjoy our conversation. Hi, Katrina. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, love. Thank you.
I'm especially appreciative that you're taking the time to have this conversation with me today because I know that you're sick, that you have the flu. So I really appreciate you taking the time out of your self-care and self-love routine to speak.
My bed hibernation.
Your bed hibernation, yeah.
That's the first time I've been dressed in about 4 days.
It's a special occasion, so thank you.
I know, I washed my hair and I had a shower. As I mentioned before, excuse the sniffles, and I might have to grab the tissue, and lots of movement because I've got the body aches happening, so that's why all of that's happening.
That's why all of it's happening. So in case whoever's watching or listening is wondering what's going on Katrina's end, she has a really bad flu right now. So
yeah, I'll try and give you my bestest self that I can in the moment.
Awesome. Thank you. And Katrina, you are truly a soul sister from another mister. And I'm really excited to just chat about your experiences with intuition and how it shows up for you in your everyday life. And just hopefully people who are tuning into this will be able to see themselves in your experiences and your perspective. So I guess I'll just start off by asking the question I've been asking most people right off the bat, and that's whether you consider yourself to be an intuitive person.
Yes.
Yeah. Is this something that...
If you would have asked me that question maybe a few years ago, I would have hesitated. It's new for me to just say, yes, I'm intuitive and absolutely own it. But yeah, no, definitely. I feel that we all are. We just have to, tap back into, reconnect with like that innate aspect of ourselves. And it took me a long time. It took me 47 years. No, sorry, 37. I'm 40. 37.
37 years. Yeah, and mine was like 34 years before I tapped into that for myself.
Yeah.
What do you feel were some of the barriers to claiming that as an identity for yourself, or claiming the word like I am intuitive? What felt untouchable or inaccessible about that word
Oh,
before?
so much. I now, like looking back in hindsight, I feel that, well, I mean, as I said before, we're all intuitive. I feel that I've always been very intuitive. I just didn't know that the things that I was feeling and experiencing was my intuition, because I had this, I think, this ideal of what intuition was or what intuition looked like. And because what I was experiencing within myself, what my knowing showed up as in my life, didn't look like this ideal that I'd put on what intuition was,
Mm-hmm.
then I felt that I wasn't intuitive. And, doing the usual too, I think, comparing, looking at how other people show their intuition and share their intuition and talk about intuition. And
Mm-hmm.
because I wasn't like that, or as good as that, or as intuitive as that, I didn't think that I was intuitive. And I think too, well, I know, I think I know, I mean, over the past few years, I've done an immense amount of of stripping away the layers, and just reconnecting with myself and getting to know myself and healing myself and all of that. And through that process, I think of emptying all of those layers and detaching, I guess, from all of that external noise and external influence and all of that, that it's created space and emptiness and this opportunity for me to hear, like, my intuition more, and to know what it is, and to, yeah, just to know that aspect of myself and to connect with that aspect of myself, which I had been disconnected. Well, actually, I don't know if I'd ever been disconnected to it completely. You just weren't hearing it or heeding it probably as much. Well, I wasn't as much as I do now.
Yeah. And my own experience too was that I share the same belief that we are all intuitive. But when you have that like idea or expectation of what intuition is supposed to look like, and your own intuition just doesn't match up with that, it's really easy to discount and discredit and just write off all of the ways that you're already being intuitive. I definitely had that experience as well.
Totally. And also, too, I feel that this is an aha moment. I actually only had the last few weeks. This is very recent. Um, I used to expect like intuitive knowing to be this bang, like fireworks coming, and this big booming voice over me telling me, this amazing stuff and visions and seeing, all these magical things. And I realized that, like, my intuitive voice, my soul's voice, my knowing felt so normal to me that I was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh my God, that can't be my intuition. Because the intuition is meant to be like really like woo woo and really, out there and really,
Magical.
magical, all that stuff. And because like this knowingness, this voice within me, my that my intuition, how my intuition feels to me and communicates to me, was just so normal. I was like, I just had discounted it, like as you said.
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't acknowledged that that's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And how has it been? Like, I know you said that this was a recent aha moment, but how does it feel to discover or uncover that that actually is your intuition. Like that must feel pretty liberating and like exhilarating to be like, woo, I'm intuitive too.
You know, it's like, I think it's like your intuitive voice happy dances around, because it's like, whoa, she's listening, she's acknowledging. And the more that you acknowledge and you listen and you follow that voice, your intuitive voice, the clearer it becomes and the louder it gets. But back to your question, what was your question again? Sorry, my head's not very clear.
Like the most recent question I asked was how it felt to
How it felt.
to realize that that actually was your intuition.
Yeah. I think that whole the whole journey that I've been on, particularly the last couple of years, has been, it's been a combination of like a journey of reconnecting with myself, self-love, self-worth. It's all sort of come together at the same time. So it wasn't just like, oh my God, I feel amazing because I've connected with my intuition. It's like, oh my God, I feel amazing because I found myself and I love myself and I think I'm amazing and I'm discovering my gifts and I'm reconnecting with who I am, and I'm rediscovering all these aspects of myself that I'd become forgetful of and or had disconnected from. So, I mean, I feel more love for myself, more joy within myself, more peace within myself, more knowing of who I am than I have ever have. I mean, in 40 years, ever, in this lifetime. So it's amazing. And it's all of that together, you know?
Yeah,
You know?
not just one thing.
Yeah. And I think too that probably the reconnecting with my intuitive abilities, or my, you know, my higher self's voice, my soul's voice, has been because like I trust that now, you know, like with just like coming back to that place of self-love and coming back to, you know, that space of living through my heart and feeling worthy and feeling all of that, like that's allowed that to blossom, I guess, because I listen to myself more than I listen to others now. Whereas before, like I gave everyone else and their voice the superiority over me, and I would take on everyone else's stuff rather than follow my own heart and my own inner voice and my own, you know, guide. And so it's been a journey of all of that, not just the sort of the development of my intuition.
Yeah, and you bring up a really interesting point about previously seeking answers or information or insights outside of yourself. And I think that that's a journey that all of us go on. Like it's not, as we are coming back to ourselves and like rediscovering ourselves, I feel it often, if not always, starts by looking outside. And then for each of us, it's kind of different how much of that external data or noise or advice or whatever it is that we can actually stomach and we can tolerate before something inside of us is like, that's enough. Like, let's start to now peel back those layers and go within, like get to the core of who you are and what your guidance is, because nobody else can know us as well as we can know ourselves, and nobody else can be trusted to know what we should do or who we should be more than we can trust our own inner knowing in that regard.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it actually wasn't until I got to that point. I mean, I spent, and I'm not saying that there was anything wrong with what I was doing. I totally agree with what you're saying. I think that's how we start out on, our spiritual odyssey is by, seeking answers from outside ourselves, following others, all of that. That's all a part of it. And I'm so grateful for, all the external teachers that I had and still have in my life.
Mm-hmm.
But it actually wasn't, and it wasn't until recently, again, the last couple of years, that was probably the tipping point for me when I started really um, living through my intuition, was to just sort of like disconnect like from all of that. And not, I mean, it's not that I've disconnected from everything and I don't, read anything or take anything else on board. That's not true at all. But it's like I just, that's not my guide anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's what's in here is my guide now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's more of like cultivating a discernment, I find. Because, like, when I was starting on my own intuitive journey, I was like subscribed to so many newsletters and I followed a million people on social media and I read all the books and took all the classes and like was just like a sponge, like taking it all in. And I must have like a really high tolerance of sponginess because I feel like I just took on so much. And then it was a process of like, okay, start wringing yourself out, start pulling back and disconnecting, and just only keeping or only holding on to what resonates. And like literally everything else can just go. See ya. Yeah.
Absolutely. That has absolutely been my journey as well over the last couple. I mean, you can see my bookshelf in the background there. That used to be full of books like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I've got it down to 1.5 shelves. And I only did that. Last year. No, this year when I moved.
This year, yeah, I remember.
You remember? All of that, that was massive for me. I used to hoard books, and I've got to keep them because I might have to refer back to that later and need that information. And yeah, I was so the same, and it's been so liberating, hasn't it? Like to just, yeah. And I think too, for me too, it's like sort of coming back all the time to being absolutely present. Because if you're like, when I was trying to sort of like retain all this information or bring all this information, like it might have actually been relevant to what was where I was right in that present moment. And so you've got this disconnect all the time, and it's just, yeah. I feel the more present I can be in each moment, that's when I feel the most connected to my intuition, into my inner voice.
Mm-hmm. Go lie down. Lie down. Sorry, the
There's
dog is scratching.
a
There we go. Okay.
an
She wants to
emoji.
be a part of the discussion too. But you're right. When you're in that presence, I find, and I don't know if you find as well, but whatever you need in that moment actually has like the space and the room to surface from within.
Totally.
So you don't have to hold on to things just in case.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. And that's how, well, that's how I, speaking for myself, like that's how I have developed the relationship with my intuition, is knowing that if I can be present, each step, like each instruction, not really instructions, actually, not the
Yeah.
right word. you'll be shown in each moment what you need to be shown. Sounds better. Like, so in each moment, right in front of my, right before me, if I can just sort of pull my presence in and pull my awareness in and go like in here, what I need to know in that moment is there. Like, it's right there, and there's nothing else. There's nothing else. There's nothing else that's relevant to that particular moment. And so for me, that's, I guess, what I'm sort of really trying to cultivate at the moment is okay, coming back to the present, coming back to the present, coming back to the present, because that's what's in here. I will know in that moment what I need to do, what step I need to take, if I need to take action, or I don't need to know, whatever it is, whatever it may be.
And I just want to bring up one of your stories, actually, that's related to that. But sometimes the guidance or the insights that are coming through are to take action. But oftentimes the guidance that comes through is like, not yet, like, just like chill out, hang out for now. Like, you don't actually need to take any action right now or take any steps. And it goes completely contrary to what we're taught and what's expected of us in this kind of like go, go, go culture. But I remember the example of you finding your home, your new home, and, you know, thinking from a logical perspective that like, oh, I should be looking in the want ads, or I should be doing something to like take steps and move that forward. But when you were present and when you tuned into yourself, you just didn't get the feeling or the inspiration or that like momentum to do anything. And you really, just witnessing that process for you, that was like intuition in action. That was actually like embodying and really, really trusting yourself, even though it was odds at like, it was against, you know, what would be expected or like what you quote unquote should do in a situation like that. So yeah, that was just like a beautiful example. And then when you were present, you got the hit, you got the ping. It's like, I'm going to check this website right now. And lo and behold, that's where your home was. So that was just a beautiful example of what can happen when you really do pay attention to your own inner guidance.
Yeah, that was such a pivotal turning point for me in my trust, in my intuition, because that if I ever lose faith in myself, I always come back to that, to that example. I really do. And I know now I know I have that example now. I mean, I had other examples before that, but that was a really big one.
Yeah.
An example of what it feels like, to get that yes or get that no from within, like me. And if I absolutely trust and have faith in that, then yeah, it's right. Even if it, as you said, it seems so illogical. Like, most of the time it does. Like, doesn't it? Like, I mean, not every single time, but most of the time your intuitive, I mean, people say gut instincts. I think of it more as, I call it heart instincts, like, because that's where I sort of feel more, that's where I get my intuitive feels from, is in my heart space. And I know so, like, I just know the yeses and the nos and how that feels. And yeah, my mind, bless my mind, you know, they're amazing things, but like, you know, it's just a question everything that, you know, you get that feeling and then you get the voice coming in, oh my God, that's crazy. Like, no, you can't do that. Like, that's ridiculous. And if I just keep coming back to here and keep coming back to here and feeling into that yes or the no, or to what do I need to do, or what, you know, how do I need to act? What do I need to be? Blah, blah, blah. it always knows, and it normally does feel really crazy, like from your mind's perspective.
Yeah.
But if you just keep flowing with it anyway, then your mind go, oh, okay, now I know why you did. Now I know why you wanted me to do that, or now I know.
You're
Yeah.
a genius. Yeah. In hindsight, that was the best thing ever.
I mean, okay, this is another recent one, and this is, I only was thinking about this morning. Okay, I've got the flu,
Yeah.
and a few days ago, because I don't normally keep like Panadol, Nurofen, all that sort of stuff in the house, because I don't take it. But it was, I think, like, I've lost track of the days. It was Thursday morning or something, and I was in agony with body aches, headaches, all of that, and then my mind and my suffering was like, you need drugs, like you need Panadol, you need something to take away this. And I rang my girlfriend who lived down the road, and I'm like, look, do you have any Panadol, anything in your house? Like, please, can you drop it over? And she did. And I picked up the Panadol and I came into the house and I was just going to take it. And then I got this boom, boom from in here. Do not take the drugs. And I was just like, what? This is ridiculous. I'm dying.
I need it. Yeah.
And it was just like this little, no. Feel through this. Don't numb it out. It's for, there's a higher purpose to this, all of that. You're okay. You don't need to numb out with the Panadol. And it was just so logical to me. And I've got my mum on the phone just saying, just take the Panadol. I've got, everyone, my friends going, just take the Panadol. Why are you, playing the martyr or whatever and suffering? But anyway, it was so strong. I even got my pendulum to check because it seemed so ridiculous. Yeah. And my pendulum did the big, massive no swing. Do not take the Panadol. I have no idea why I wasn't meant to take that Panadol, but I wasn't, and I didn't, because I trust that knowing, and I listen. So that was my recent yeah.
Well, then it can be for any. I'm glad you shared that story, because it's, we can be intuitive and we can tap into our intuition for anything and everything. It doesn't have to be always these like life-changing decisions, like, should I take this job or should I leave this partner, or like, should I change careers or whatever. It doesn't always have to be this like major thing. And in many cases, I find it actually really benefits us to practice developing our intuitive strength with the small things, with things that might not seem even significant or that they really matter. Having enough instances where you've like practiced tuning in, like, how do I feel? Trusting that feeling, taking aligned action. It like builds this repertoire and builds up a database where you have something to turn to. And like, when those big decisions are looming, you have like all of this evidence compiled where you know what it feels like and that you can trust yourself.
It's building the trust. That's the big thing, isn't it? It's building the trust, because especially, like, as we said before, especially like when a lot of your intuitive hits just feel so illogical to your mind and so crazy, so much trust is involved, so much. I feel like I just live in this space of faith all the time, because it feels like most of the things that, especially right now at this really potent time, it feels that a lot of, the guidance that I'm getting from within myself is just so different to anything that I've ever lived through before. So I just feel like I'm living in faith all the time, because it's like, what? What? That? You want me to do that? No, I can't do that. Or
that makes no sense. Yeah.
I've got to let go of that person out of my life, or that thing out of my life. No way. I'm so attached to them. I'm so attached to that. What, you want me to just drop that? But it's, yeah. But the more that you trust, and the more that you, as I keep saying, as you connect with that aspect of yourself, then you can't, like, you sort of can't go against that anymore, really, can you?
Well, like you technically can, but it
Yeah,
might, you always can.
true.
But part of that journey is choosing again and again and again
Yeah,
to trust yourself.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And being committed, I guess I guess it's that commitment to making that the continual choice, the constant choices all the time, and yeah. Excuse me.
It's not always easy, right? And it doesn't always make sense, but I feel the rewards anyway make up for the process of like, what? That
Yeah,
doesn't make any sense at all.
yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. I wanted to kind of shift gears for a little bit and talk because you and I have had many conversations around, I guess, the limitations of language to like explain or define or somehow label or identify what it is we're experiencing. And I wanted to kind of connect that to how you and how we are intuitive. Because, like you were talking about earlier, there's like, I think everybody has an idea or an expectation of like what counts as intuition. And because maybe you've seen it modeled enough, or maybe you've seen it spoken, maybe you've heard it spoken about enough, that just becomes like the legitimate way to be intuitive. But I know you right now are in a time where you're discovering all these new ways that you're intuitive, but there's not really a name for them, or there's not like a title or a label that you can apply to them. Do you have, I'm even trying to think of what my question is here, but do you have reassurance for people who are like discovering parts of themselves or like gifts that they have, to just like normalize it for them, or like reassure and validate them that it's okay even if there's not a label for it, or even if there's not an official definition or terminology for this yet?
Mm. It's interesting because I have I have felt abnormal my whole life. It wasn't actually until I had a soul session with Lauren Arletta where she made me feel and realize and acknowledge that those high functioning aspects of myself, or those parts of myself that I'd always thought of as not normal, were
Mm-hmm.
actually my gifts and were actually my unique were unique my uniqueness. Um, like as you said before, I mean, I struggle with my voice. Like I struggle communicating or putting into words all of these things that I'm feeling and experiencing in my internal world. And that was one of the things that I thought was wrong with me, that I couldn't communicate properly, and I was a bad communicator, and I couldn't talk, and I couldn't find the right words. And sometimes there just aren't words like for what you're feeling. And I'm sort of just getting a bit comfortable with that, I think. And I'm sort of, and it comes back to, I guess, the journey that I was talking about before, of being on that journey of, self-love and sort of reconnecting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into who I am, and not trying to fit into some specific box anymore, and being comfortable with just being who I am. And sometimes not even being able to, I don't even know sometimes myself, like and that's okay. Like, I'm getting really, really, really comfortable in the space of unknowingness. Instead of trying to um, feel my unknowingness or allocate my unknowingness to different things or different words or different labels, or all of that, like just letting them be as they are without having to allocate anything to them, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm in a massive void of unknowingness at the moment, where I feel that my work and what I know about myself and my gifts and my abilities, I'm just touching on the surface at them at this time. And things are going to start opening up. I've got no idea. Like, I've got no idea where I'm going or what's coming. And to normalize that, I don't know what's normal, really. Like, I used to attach, like, I used to try so hard. I tried my whole life to be normal. Like, I tried my whole life to fit in and to um, please everybody else and to be what everyone else wanted me to be. And that's just been a part of my journey over the last few years. And it hasn't been easy. Like, it hasn't been an easy journey. Like, it's been a lot of work, and it's been a lot of, as I said, stripping away and stripping away and stripping away. But you just have to do the work, really, don't you, to get back to here, you know?
Mm-hmm. And
Um,
sorry,
no,
I was going to just say, I love that you said, what's normal anyway, right? Like, I think that question is just so refreshing and so like a breath of fresh air, because even just realizing that each of us has this certain idea of what's normal, that's a label. Like, we've decided, whether it was consciously or unconsciously, what counted as normal and what was like outside of the bounds. But when you realize that that's kind of just like a definition that you've made up, you can
normal,
also
the word normal should just be eliminated from the vocabulary. It should, like, because there's no, when you really, really, really think about it, there's no such thing as normal. Like, there isn't, because what's normal to one person isn't normal to another person.
mm-hmm.
When you talk about anything, not just people, when you talk about habits or food that you like or anything, like, there's no such thing as normal. And you know what? It is a breath of fresh air when you make that realization, because you just stop. Like, it's just stop it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And because it is such a loaded word, right? Like, normal has this value assigned to it, that it's good
Yeah.
to be normal. And if you're somehow not normal, then that's bad or wrong or weird or crazy or whatever
If
it
you're
is.
not normal, you're abnormal. And how bad does that sound? Like, how horrible is that? You're abnormal. What?
Yeah, that doesn't sound good at all. It doesn't feel good at all.
Isn't it? Like, the fact
Mm-hmm.
that if you're not normal, you're abnormal. Like, it's horrific. It's
Yeah.
just,
And
yeah.
I feel even with just speaking about intuitive skills or intuitive gifts, I think in many ways our culture has normalized certain intuitive gifts, but not others. So it's like, oh, well, if you're clairvoyant, that's to be expected because that's intuition. Or like the clairs, clairaudient and claircognizant and clairsentient, those are all kind of like normal for intuition, like in the realm of intuition. But I was even speaking just yesterday actually with her name is Laren, and after we had finished recording the interview, I was just speaking about an experience recently where I just got this like wave of sadness and grief for no reason. It wasn't like attached to anything in particular. And I like cried for an hour and then I was fine. And when she was speaking about it, when she was reflecting it back to me, she was like, oh, it sounds like, that you're able to like hold space and process just like grief in the ethers on behalf of other people. And I had felt that way too, but I was like, even though I'm creating this whole series on intuition, I still felt that that was like a weird thing. So I didn't want to like phrase it like that. But when she just reflected it back to me and was like, it just felt so validating and so affirming and so normalizing that that was just one of the ways that my intuition shows up in like random bursts of crying for no reason. But to see that as counting and as qualifying as intuitive, I'm still going on that journey myself. I'm still not recognizing or acknowledging parts of my own intuition as intuitive. So I love that we're having these conversations and we're like widening broadening the spectrum of what is and what is intuitive, what counts, and how we can be intuitive.
Totally. Like I read the bio that you wrote for me, I was like, oh, I felt so witnessed by you then, because it's the same as what you just said then, is that like when I'm in creative mode, like when I'm creating my art or creating, my macrame pieces, it's just so natural and normal for me to be in that space and for that all to flow through. And it's just so normal for me that when someone, attaches that to my intuitive ability, it's like, oh, yes, that's you. Like,
I'm
yes.
amazing.
Oh, excuse me. But yeah, it is because, sometimes, I mean, we do it, don't we? Human, we compartmentalize things and we put things in different compartments, and then we don't put that in that compartment. And then someone will go, oh my God, like what you do is so intuitive. And I'm like, oh, I just thought, it's
I was
just,
just being me.
I know. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I agree totally with what you were just saying. Yeah.
And I think for people who are watching this or listening to this, that it is important to, it's kind of twofold, because I do believe that we can give ourselves that validation and that acknowledgement and that approval and permission that like this counts as intuition. I do believe that we can claim that for ourselves. I've also experienced just yesterday um, how powerful it can be to just have somebody else
Mm-hmm.
witness it, not as like needing to seek that external validation, but and not being like centered in myself, but to just get that added perspective or that added layer and that added reflection, that support, that like that counts too.
Totally. And you know what? I've been really conscious of doing that with people around me recently. Whether it's friends, family, people you meet in conversation, and they might say something that is coming from an intuitive space, and but they don't even realize it, and just going, oh my goodness, you're so intuitive, like that, that was really intuitive of you, and they're like, what? I'm not intuitive, and it's like, so totally, and it's giving people that gift of recognition, of
Yeah.
recognizing their intuition. And because most of the time they don't, and then that'll just put that little spark in their mind. Oh, she thinks I'm a bit intuitive, and then that might might start something, an intuitive fire within them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
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 it totally opens the door to either starting that journey or deepening that journey or just kind of going down into your own little rabbit hole of who you are and how you are intuitive already.
yeah. Because
Mm-hmm.
we all are. We keep coming back to that. We all it's innate within us. There's no
Mm-hmm.
one that's not born with that innate ability. it's really, really sad that that's not, it's not nurtured. I mean, I see it with my boys. I mean, I really try to nurture it within them. Um, but I can see how society in general isn't nurturing it within them, and that was the same for us. I mean, even more so back then, you know, even more so back then.
Well, I think now there is just people like you who are like consciously parenting in a way that, you know, acknowledges and identifies and validates emotions and energy and intuition. Whereas when we were growing up, there wasn't a lot of acknowledgement of that. Not in the way that it is today, anyway.
Yeah.
But even still, there's so many other factors. Like, it's not just you, the parent, who gets to like teach everything and anything to your children. It's still, there's so many other things that aren't validating or aren't prioritizing that inner guidance or that intuitive knowing, but you're doing your part.
I know, and that's all you can do, you know, and that's all you can do. And when I get caught up in that, all of that, I think, you know what, I just need to trust in their high journey. You know, that's their journey. I'm just a little aspect of it, you know, and I can just do what I can do. And
yeah, everybody's gonna go on their own path and discover themselves, rediscover themselves in their own way and at their own time.
Yeah.
So if people are, I guess, just starting out and maybe still feel like a little hesitation that they are actually intuitive or that they can be intuitive, are there any like practices or experiences or resources that you would recommend to just help people quiet the noise or turn the volume down so that they can hear their intuition more?
Um, I I just feel that we have to make sitting with ourselves in silence a priority daily. Um, I don't know. That's just, for me, that's it. Like, I mean, there are so many different things that you can do, and there are so many different courses that you can take, or all of that. But coming from my heart, if there's the one thing that I want to share is to say that is to make sitting with yourself in silence daily a priority. And, you know, it doesn't have to be sitting for an hour in meditation, or it doesn't have to be any specific time. Just sitting with yourself and just bringing your attention inward. And you don't have to do anything fancy. You might want to focus on your breath if that helps you to focus inwards, but yourself and just listen to what's coming up. That's what's coming from my heart right now to share with people what to do. Yeah.
I think that's really beautiful too, because like it's sort of a trick question because there is no, and you passed the test.
Well, thank you. You're giving me a
but there is. I'm sorry, but I wasn't intending it to be a trick question. I wasn't, but the way you answered it, I was like, oh, that could have been a trick question. Okay. Because as much as we, you know, yearn for a formula or a model or like quick tips and easy answers and like step-by-step things that we can do, really only we know what's best for us to do. And one of the easiest and best ways to like connect with yourself so that you can uncover or just like tune in to your own inner guidance is to sit with yourself in silence and to just make that space to be with yourself, be by yourself, and not have any agenda aside
And
from just like
distractions, it's so, and it's, and it mightn't be, it doesn't have to be like sitting in lotus position at an altar or anything. It might be in the shower, it might be laying in the bath, it might be going and sitting on the beach. I mean, it could look different every single day. I think that, I mean, that's one of the things that I've learned the most at being a mum. One of the greatest teachings that I've learned is to be flexible. Being a yoga teacher, I had a very strict, disciplined practice that looked a very certain way, and I had to be on my mat for this amount of time and sitting in lotus position for this amount of time. And then the boys come along, and it was like, whoa, you
good luck. Yeah.
Good luck having 5 minutes on your yoga mat. But it's letting go of that rigidity of things having to look a certain way and be a certain way, and you can sit with yourself in silence anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned to sit with myself in silence when my boy is going crazy around me. I really have, because I've had to learn to do that. But starting out, that's not the ideal scenario. I guess it's just letting go of any of that rigidity. And we keep talking about, it's our intuition is so unique. The way we hear and connect and communicate and feel is so unique to us. So you just have to find it for yourself and just sit with yourself to find it, and to connect with that with yourself, and
Mm-hmm.
just go in.
Yeah. And I like the idea too of like going in with the understanding that it's already there, like that it's not missing or defective or whatever, just like sitting with yourself, knowing and trusting that you're already intuitive, full stop. Yeah.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I want to thank you again so much. I know just the timing of it, I was like, oh, poor Katrina. I'm so thankful that you showed up. You did wonderfully.
You know what? I feel more alive than I have in 4 days, so it's been really good actually. I think it's got my mind. I've been distracted from my flu.
That's perfect. And I just know that everything that we talked about in this conversation will be medicinal for people in exactly the way that they need to receive it. So I just want to thank you for your perspective and just honor you for showing up. Thank you.
Thank you. It's such an honor being a part of this. So grateful.
And if people want to learn more about your work or connect with you online, where's the best place for them to do that?
So probably, well, my website is www.heartandhandscreations.com,
Mm-hmm.
and my Instagram page is the easiest way, heart_and_hands.
Yeah, and I'll put the links to that below the video and the audio too. But I'm so I first connected with you through Instagram, and I'm so grateful that I did. And to anybody who's tuning in for this, go follow Katrina on Instagram. Her page is just like a ray of sunlight in my day.
Thank you. You know how much I love you.
I love you too. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
And take care.